Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Workers.com Staffing Pulse, Insights from the Frontline. I'm Sam, Staffing Manager here at Workers.com. Every day, I work with employers who are trying to solve hiring challenges that don't always show up on a staffing report. Open positions are one issue. Keeping good employees on the job, improving attendance, and building a dependable workforce often become the larger challenge. That's where today's conversation is focused.
And I'm Shelby, a recruiting coordinator. My role keeps me connected with both employers and job seekers throughout the hiring process. One thing I've learned is that recruiting isn't only about finding more candidates. It's about creating better connections between employers and the communities where those jobs exist. Those connections often determine whether someone accepts an opportunity, arrives on their first day, and stays with the company long enough to become a valuable member of the team.
That's an important distinction. Many employers measure recruiting by asking a simple question. How many applicants did we receive? That's useful information. A more valuable question is this: how many dependable employees did we gain? Those are two very different measurements.
They really are. We've seen situations where a company receives hundreds of applications, but continues struggling with attendance, turnover, and production staffing. Then we've worked with another employer that receives far fewer applicants, yet maintains a much more stable workforce because they're hiring locally and building stronger relationships within their community.
Today's episode explores what those employers are doing differently. We're going to talk about community recruiting, hyperlocal hiring, neighborhood hiring hubs, transit-friendly recruiting, partnerships with community organizations, educational institutions, workforce development agencies. We'll also discuss practical ways employers in warehousing, manufacturing, retail distribution, food production, construction support, and skilled trades are improving retention without dramatically increasing recruiting budgets.
In addition, we'll look at why this matters for job seekers. Finding a job shouldn't require driving across several counties if opportunities exist much closer to home. Reducing commute times often improves quality of life. It lowers transportation costs. It reduces stress. And from an employer's perspective, shorter commutes frequently translate into stronger attendance and improved retention.
Let's start with something many hiring managers experience every week. A candidate interviews well. They accept the offer. They complete onboarding. Everything looks promising. Then the first scheduled shift arrives. No phone call, no email, no employee.
Most staffing professionals have experienced that scenario. The immediate reaction is often frustration. But after looking at enough hiring data, patterns begin to appear. Sometimes the candidate accepted another opportunity. Sometimes family circumstances changed. Sometimes childcare became unavailable. Transportation failed. Or they realized the commute wasn't realistic 5 days each week. Those reasons don't excuse a no-show. But understanding why people fail to report gives employers an opportunity to improve the process.
One of the biggest assumptions we see is that every hiring problem requires recruiting farther away. The thought process sounds logical. If we aren't finding enough workers nearby, let's expand our recruiting radius. Sometimes that's necessary, but expanding the search area also introduces new risks: longer commutes, higher transportation expenses, greater scheduling conflicts, more opportunities for unexpected delays.
There's also another factor. People tend to build routines close to where they live: schools, childcare, grocery stores, medical appointments, community activities. When work fits naturally into those routines, employees often find it easier to maintain consistent attendance. Long commutes introduce variables that employers don't control: traffic congestion, public transportation delays, vehicle maintenance, fuel costs, unexpected road closures. Those issues accumulate over time.
Let's imagine a warehouse operation serving a regional distribution network. The facility has 120 hourly employees. Management notices turnover climbing above expectations during the first 90 days. Initially, they believe wages are the issue. They increase starting pay. Applications increase. yet retention barely changes.
Then someone reviews employee addresses. A surprising trend appears. Many of the employees leaving early travel 45 minutes to an hour each direction. Meanwhile, neighborhoods located within 15 minutes of the warehouse have relatively few employees working there. The recruiting strategy was reaching people. It simply wasn't reaching the closest communities.
That's where community recruiting starts changing the conversation. Instead of asking, where else should we advertise? Employers begin asking, who lives nearby that doesn't know these opportunities exist? Those questions produce very different recruiting strategies.
Let's build on that example. Suppose the warehouse partners with a nearby community center. They host monthly hiring events. Applications are completed on site. Recruiters conduct interviews immediately. Supervisors participate in hiring discussions. Conditional offers are made before candidates leave. That process removes several barriers. People don't need to travel across town for an interview. They don't have to wait several days for updates. Questions receive immediate answers.
Another benefit is familiarity. Candidates become comfortable with the recruiting team before their first day. Instead of arriving at an unfamiliar workplace after several rounds of online communication, they've already met the people they'll be working with. That personal connection matters.
It does. Recruiting is still a relationship business. Technology helps. Online applications help. Text messaging helps. Applicant tracking systems improve efficiency. None of those replace trust. People tend to remain committed when they believe someone invested time in helping them succeed.
Let's talk about manufacturing for a moment. Manufacturers often face continuous hiring needs because production schedules don't pause while positions remain open. Many facilities recruit continuously. The challenge isn't always about generating applications. It's maintaining workforce stability month after month.
We've worked with manufacturing employers who found success by concentrating recruiting efforts within nearby industrial corridors. Rather than advertising broadly across an entire metropolitan region, they focused on neighborhoods already familiar with manufacturing work. People living nearby often knew friends or family members employed in similar facilities. That familiarity reduced uncertainty about the work environment.
Community reputation plays a larger role than many employers realize. If local residents hear positive experiences from neighbors, former classmates, or family members, they're more likely to apply. If they hear concerns about scheduling, communication, or inconsistent hours, those perceptions spread quickly too.
That's why community recruiting extends beyond filling today's openings. Every hiring interaction shapes future recruiting. Applicants talk, employees talk, community organizations share experiences, local workforce agencies compare notes, schools ask graduates about their first jobs. The reputation an employer builds today influences recruiting opportunities months from now.
One thing I appreciate about community partnerships is that they create ongoing conversations instead of isolated recruiting events. Instead of contacting an organization only when hiring demand increases, employers build relationships throughout the year. Those relationships create stronger workforce pipelines over time.
Let's give listeners an example. Imagine a food production company preparing for seasonal demand. Historically, they increase recruiting efforts only a few weeks before production ramps up. The result? Compressed hiring timelines, intense competition, limited interview availability, higher stress for supervisors.
Now compare that with another approach. The company maintains relationships with workforce development organizations throughout the year. Recruiters attend local career fairs every quarter. Managers participate in manufacturing awareness events. Community colleges invite supervisors to speak with students. Local nonprofits understand the types of positions available. By the time seasonal hiring begins, candidates already recognize the employer's name.
That familiarity changes recruiting. Instead of introducing the company during a busy hiring period, conversations have already started months earlier. Candidates know what the work involves. Recruiters know many of the applicants. Training organizations understand hiring requirements. Everyone enters the hiring process better prepared.
Let's shift toward one of today's central ideas, the neighborhood hiring hub. This isn't necessarily a permanent office. It doesn't require constructing new facilities or demand major capital investment.
Think of it as creating convenient recruiting touchpoints where local residents already gather. Community centers, libraries, educational campuses, workforce development offices, faith-based community facilities, municipal buildings hosting employment events, existing staffing branch offices, temporary pop-up recruiting locations. The goal is simple: bring hiring opportunities closer to potential employees rather than expecting every candidate to travel long distances during the recruiting process.
That's especially valuable when employers need to hire multiple people within the same geographic area. Instead of relying entirely on digital recruiting, they're becoming visible members of the local community. That visibility creates familiarity. Familiarity builds trust, and trust often improves recruiting outcomes.
There's another advantage. Recruiters begin learning more about the communities they're serving. They hear transportation concerns firsthand. They understand scheduling preferences. They identify local training resources. They learn which shifts generate the strongest interest. Those conversations improve future recruiting decisions.
One question employers sometimes ask is whether local hiring limits access to talent. The answer is usually no. Community recruiting isn't about excluding candidates from outside the area. It's about strengthening the nearby workforce while continuing broader recruiting when appropriate. The objective is balance.
And balance becomes important because every workforce looks different. Some specialized skilled trades positions require broader recruiting. Engineering roles may attract regional candidates. Highly technical manufacturing positions sometimes require national searches, but many warehouse, production, logistics, and distribution positions benefit significantly from stronger local participation.
As we continue this discussion, we'll look more closely at how employers build those local pipelines, how transit-friendly hiring improves attendance, and why partnerships often produce recruiting results that traditional advertising alone struggles to achieve.
We'll also share practical examples from employers who improved workforce reliability by focusing less on recruiting volume and more on recruiting accessibility, convenience, and long-term community relationships.
One point we touched on a couple of minutes ago deserves a closer look: accessibility. When employers hear that word, many immediately think about facility access or compliance requirements. Those are important. Now, we're going to talk about something broader. How accessible is your hiring process? Can people realistically reach your interview location? Can they attend orientation without taking 2 buses and half a day off from another job? Can someone complete the application on a mobile phone while sitting at a community center or library? Those questions influence hiring outcomes more than many organizations realize.
That's an important shift in thinking. Many hiring processes were designed around the employer's convenience. Applicants were expected to adjust their schedules, travel wherever necessary, and wait several days between each step. That worked differently 20 years ago. Today's labor market moves much faster. Candidates compare opportunities. If one employer schedules an interview next Tuesday and another employer offers an interview this afternoon, the decision often becomes easy. Speed, convenience, and communication matter. Those factors work together. We've watched employers reduce hiring delays simply by removing unnecessary steps from the recruiting process. Applications became shorter. Interview scheduling became easier. Hiring managers became available more quickly. The result wasn't only faster hiring. Candidate engagement improved because people didn't feel like they were waiting indefinitely.
Let's talk about transit for a moment. Transportation isn't always the first topic discussed during workforce planning meetings. It probably should be. We've seen situations where an employer had competitive wages, good benefits, and a positive work environment. Attendance still struggled. After looking closer, the issue wasn't compensation. The final evening bus left 15 minutes before second shift ended. Employees faced difficult choices every day: leave work early, pay for a rideshare, ask coworkers for rides, or risk missing transportation altogether.
That's a challenge an employer might never notice without asking employees. Sometimes small scheduling adjustments create meaningful improvements. moving a shift start time by 30 minutes, adjusting break schedules, coordinating with local transit options, creating designated carpool meeting locations. None of those changes solve every transportation challenge. Together, they reduce barriers that affect attendance.
We've also seen employers work with staffing partners to understand where applicants are coming from. Mapping employee zip codes often reveals patterns. You might discover one neighborhood consistently produces dependable long-term employees. Another area generates strong applicant volume but experiences higher turnover. That information helps guide future recruiting investments.
It also supports smarter advertising. Rather than running one broad recruiting campaign across an entire metropolitan area, employers focus outreach where they already know workforce participation is strong. That doesn't mean excluding anyone. It means placing additional attention where hiring results have consistently been positive.
Let's use a retail distribution example. A regional distribution center employs nearly 300 people. Peak season requires hiring another 60 associates. Historically, management purchased large advertising campaigns across several counties. Applications poured in. Interview attendance varied. New hire retention remained inconsistent.
Then the recruiting team reviewed several years of hiring data. One finding stood out. Employees living within 20 miles stayed with the company substantially longer than employees commuting from farther away. That information prompted a different recruiting strategy. Instead of increasing advertising across the entire region, they invested more heavily in neighborhoods close to the facility. Community organizations helped promote hiring events. Local schools shared information with graduates. Libraries displayed hiring information. The staffing team established recurring recruiting days at community locations.
Within months, several performance indicators began improving. Interview attendance increased, first-day reporting improved, 90-day retention strengthened, supervisor overtime declined because staffing became more stable. Those improvements weren't created by one advertising campaign. They resulted from building stronger local awareness over time.
One aspect of community recruiting that deserves attention is consistency. Some organizations host one hiring event every year and expect lasting results. Community relationships work differently. People remember organizations that remain engaged. Recruiters who visit regularly become familiar faces. Local organizations gain confidence referring candidates because they've developed trust over time.
That's one reason we encourage employers to think beyond immediate openings. If your recruiting efforts begin only after production demand increases, you're already working against the clock. Community partnerships produce better outcomes when they're maintained throughout the year.
Let's talk about educational partnerships. Many people assume community colleges are useful only for technical or engineering positions. They're valuable for much more than that. Manufacturing programs, industrial maintenance, forklift certification, welding, logistics, quality assurance, commercial driving, business administration, office support. The range of available programs continues expanding.
Community colleges also understand their local workforce. Career services teams know when students complete programs. Instructors understand which graduates are seeking employment. Career fairs connect employers with people who have recently developed relevant skills. That creates opportunities before graduates begin applying broadly.
High schools and adult education programs deserve consideration as well. Many communities offer career readiness initiatives for adults entering the workforce, changing careers, or returning after an extended absence. Those participants often value stable employment. They've invested time developing new skills. Connecting with them early benefits everyone involved.
Let's shift toward workforce development organizations. These groups often provide services many employers don't realize exist. Resume assistance, interview coaching, career counseling, training resources, employment readiness programs, sometimes transportation assistance, work clothing, and childcare referrals. Those services remove obstacles that might otherwise prevent someone from accepting employment.
When staffing firms and employers understand those available resources, recruiting conversations become much more productive. Instead of simply saying, "We have openings," they can explain, "We also partner with organizations that help people prepare for work." That creates confidence for job seekers who might be uncertain about taking the next step.
Food production provides another good example. Facilities often need dependable attendants because production schedules are closely tied to customer demand. Missing a production shift affects the entire operation. Products have delivery schedules. Raw materials have expiration windows. Equipment operates on planned production cycles. One unfilled position influences the work of many others.
We worked with an employer that experienced frequent first-week turnover. Management initially believed new employees weren't committed. After interviewing people who left, another pattern emerged. Many employees didn't fully understand the pace of work before accepting the position. The recruiting process described responsibilities accurately, but candidates had difficulty visualizing the environment.
The solution wasn't changing the job. It was improving understanding before day one. The employer began offering facility tours during hiring events. Applicants observed production areas. They learned about schedules. They asked questions directly to supervisors. Some candidates decided the work wasn't right for them. That's valuable. Others accepted offers with realistic expectations. Retention improved because surprises were reduced.
That's an important lesson. A successful hire isn't measured by accepted offers. It's measured by employees who remain engaged and productive after several months. Sometimes helping someone decide a position isn't the right fit is a better outcome than hiring them and losing them after 3 days.
Community recruiting supports that approach because conversations become more personal. Candidates ask questions. Recruiters learn about transportation, shift preferences, career goals, scheduling limitations, family responsibilities. Those discussions help place people into positions where they're more likely to succeed.
Technology supports those conversations. It doesn't replace them. Online scheduling, text reminders, digital onboarding, electronic documents, those tools improve efficiency. The human interaction still matters. People remember recruiters who listened, supervisors who answered questions honestly, organizations that respected their time.
One recommendation we often make is conducting a community workforce assessment before launching a major recruiting initiative. Ask practical questions. Where do current employees live? Which neighborhoods generate the strongest retention? What public transportation options exist? Which schools offer relevant programs? Which organizations already support job seekers? Where do people naturally gather? Those answers become the foundation for a much stronger recruiting strategy.
And once that information is collected, employers don't need to change everything overnight. They can begin with one neighborhood, one partnership, one monthly hiring event, one transit-focused initiative. Measure results and learn from the experience. Expand what works.
In the next part of our discussion, we'll look at how pop-up hiring events, neighborhood hiring hubs, accelerated interview processes, and employer collaboration create stronger workforce pipelines while improving both hiring speed and long-term retention.
One of the themes that has continued to come up throughout our conversation is reducing friction. Every additional obstacle between a qualified candidate and their first day of work increases the chance of losing that candidate. Sometimes those obstacles are obvious: a long commute, limited transportation, complicated scheduling. Other times, they're much less visible: an application that takes 45 minutes to complete, an interview process spread over 2 weeks, unclear communication after an offer is made. Each one adds a little uncertainty. When you stack enough of those obstacles together, candidates begin looking elsewhere. The labor market gives people options. If another employer responds faster, communicates more clearly, or offers a hiring process that feels easier to navigate, candidates often move in that direction. That's why we encourage employers to evaluate their hiring process from the applicant's perspective. Pretend you're applying for your own job. How long does everything take? How many emails arrive, phone calls, forms to fill out, trips across town? Those answers often reveal opportunities for improvement.
Let's talk about pop-up hiring events because they're becoming more common across manufacturing, warehousing, retail distribution, and food production. The concept is straightforward. Instead of expecting every applicant to come to your facility, you temporarily bring your recruiting team into the community. That might be a community center, a local workforce development office, a library meeting room, a college campus, a neighborhood business association event, even another employer participating in a shared career fair.
The key word there is temporary when hosting a pop-up hiring event. A neighborhood hiring hub doesn't always require leasing office space. Many successful recruiting events happen in existing community locations. That keeps costs low while increasing visibility. It also allows employers to learn which locations generate the strongest response before making larger investments.
We've seen staffing teams schedule recurring hiring days, maybe every first Wednesday of the month. Candidates know where recruiters will be. Community partners know when to refer people. Local organizations include those dates in newsletters and bulletin boards. Over time, attendance becomes more predictable because people begin expecting those events.
Consistency builds familiarity. Familiarity builds trust. Trust encourages referrals. One successful placement often leads to another. Someone gets hired, they tell a neighbor. A family member applies. A former coworker attends the next hiring event. That's one reason community recruiting often gains momentum over time.
Let's imagine a manufacturing company producing industrial components. They're experiencing ongoing turnover among entry-level production associates. Traditional online advertising generates applications, but attendance at interviews remains inconsistent. The staffing team decides to try something different. Instead of scheduling interviews exclusively at the production facility, they organize monthly hiring events at a nearby workforce center.
The hiring event includes recruiters, a production supervisor, and someone from human resources. Candidates complete applications. Interviews happen immediately afterward. The supervisor answers questions about schedules, safety training, production expectations, and advancement opportunities. Applicants leave with a clear understanding of the position. Some receive conditional job offers before the event concludes.
Notice how many steps disappeared. No waiting several days for an interview invitation. No uncertainty about who they'll meet. No lengthy gap between application and first conversation. That momentum matters. Candidates remain engaged because progress happens while they're already committed to the process.
We've also seen employers invite current employees to participate in community hiring events. That creates authentic conversations. Candidates hear directly from someone performing the work every day. They ask practical questions. What's the schedule like? How was training? How supportive are supervisors? What opportunities exist after 6 months? Those conversations often answer concerns more effectively than a recruiting brochure.
There's another benefit. Current employees become ambassadors for the organization. When someone speaks positively about their experience without sounding scripted, candidates notice. Authenticity carries weight.
Let's move into accelerated hiring. Sometimes people hear that phrase and assume it means lowering standards. That's not what we're talking about. Accelerated hiring means removing unnecessary delays while maintaining hiring quality. Background checks still happen. Drug testing still happens when required. Safety training still occurs. Verification processes remain in place. The difference is coordination.
Think about the timeline. Application, interview, offer, pre-employment requirements, orientation, first shift. Every unnecessary pause between those milestones creates an opportunity to lose a candidate. Reducing those pauses improves hiring efficiency without sacrificing quality.
Warehouse operations provide a good example. A distribution center needs 30 order selectors before peak season. Historically, applicants waited several days between each hiring step. The company reorganizes the process. Recruiters schedule interviews daily. Background screening begins immediately after conditional offers. Orientation sessions occur twice each week instead of once. Managers coordinate closely with staffing teams. The hiring timeline becomes shorter without changing hiring standards.
Candidates appreciate knowing what's happening. Silence creates uncertainty. Simple communication makes a difference. A text confirming an interview, an email explaining next steps, a phone call confirming orientation. Those interactions reduce confusion and improve confidence.
One question we often encourage employers to ask is, where do candidates disappear? Not everyone who starts an application completes it. Not everyone who interviews accepts an offer. Not everyone who accepts an offer starts work. Not everyone who starts remains after 90 days. Understanding those transition points provides valuable information.
Let's say an employer notices a large number of applicants abandoning the online application. Instead of increasing advertising, they review the application itself. Maybe it's too long or isn't mobile friendly. Maybe candidates must create multiple accounts. Those issues discourage otherwise qualified applicants. Fixing them often produces better results than increasing recruiting spending.
The same thinking applies after hiring. If first-week turnover is high, examine onboarding. If 30-day turnover is increasing, evaluate supervisor communication. If 90-day retention drops, review scheduling consistency, training quality, and opportunities for employee engagement. Community recruiting brings people through the door. Retention practices determine whether they stay.
That's an important point. Recruiting and retention aren't separate conversations. They're connected. An employer with excellent recruiting and weak onboarding continues replacing employees. An employer with strong retention reduces recruiting pressure because fewer positions become vacant.
Let's talk about partnerships between employers. At first, that might sound unusual. Why would businesses collaborate on recruiting? The answer depends on the community. Some employer associations organize shared workforce events. Manufacturers participate together. Logistics companies attend. Educational institutions participate. Training providers explain certification programs. Community organizations connect attendees with available resources. Everyone benefits because awareness grows throughout the local workforce.
We've participated in events where job seekers learned about multiple industries in one afternoon. Someone arrived looking for warehouse work. They also discovered opportunities in manufacturing. Another person learned about skilled trades apprenticeships. Someone else found office support positions with logistics companies. Those events expand opportunities while strengthening the regional workforce.
Community recruiting also creates stronger relationships with local leaders. Economic development organizations, city officials, chambers of commerce, educational institutions, nonprofit organizations. Those groups all share an interest in creating stable employment opportunities. Working together often produces results that individual organizations struggle to achieve independently.
Let's bring job seekers into the conversation for a moment. One advantage of neighborhood hiring hubs is accessibility. Instead of navigating multiple websites and application systems, candidates have an opportunity to meet recruiters face-to-face. They ask questions, receive immediate feedback, learn about multiple positions, sometimes interview with more than one employer during the same visit.
That personal interaction reduces uncertainty. It also helps recruiters understand each candidate's strengths. Someone who applies for one position might be an even better fit for another opening. Those conversations happen naturally during community hiring events. They're harder to replicate through online applications alone. For staffing professionals, that's one of the most rewarding parts of community recruiting. You're not simply matching resumes to job descriptions. You're helping people find opportunities that fit their experience, goals, schedules, and circumstances. Those better matches often become longer-lasting employment relationships. And when those placements succeed, everyone benefits. The employer gains a dependable employee. The employee gains stable work closer to home. The community benefits from stronger employment opportunities. That's the foundation of a sustainable workforce pipeline.
As we wrap up this part of the discussion, we've covered how neighborhood hiring hubs, pop-up recruiting events, accelerated hiring, and community partnerships remove barriers throughout the hiring process. Next, we'll focus on measuring recruiting success, calculating return on investment, launching a low-risk community recruiting pilot, and the practical steps employers can begin implementing immediately to strengthen their local workforce pipeline while improving attendance, retention, and long-term workforce stability.
Throughout this episode, we've talked about community recruiting from several different angles. We've discussed accessibility, transportation, neighborhood hiring hubs, community partnerships, pop-up hiring events, accelerated hiring. Now let's answer the question every employer eventually asks. How do we know if it's working? That's where measurement becomes important.
Many organizations still evaluate recruiting primarily by counting applications. Application volume has value. It tells you whether people are seeing your opportunities. It doesn't tell you whether you're building a dependable workforce. The measurements that matter most often occur after someone accepts the job.
Let's look at several performance indicators. Time to fill, first day attendance, 7-day retention, 30-day retention, 90-day retention, attendance consistency, overtime related to staffing shortages, supervisor time spent covering vacant positions, employee referrals. Those measurements provide a much clearer picture of recruiting effectiveness.
Let's use a warehouse operation as an example. Suppose the company launches a 6-month neighborhood hiring hub pilot. Before the program begins, they establish a baseline. Average time to fill is 23 days. First day no-shows average 14%. 90-day retention is 64%. Mandatory overtime continues climbing because open positions remain unfilled. Those numbers become the benchmark.
Over the next 6 months, the company introduces several changes. Monthly community hiring events, partnerships with 2 workforce development organizations, recruiting sessions at a nearby community college, transit information included during interviews, text message reminders before orientation, facility tours for candidates. None of those initiatives are particularly expensive. Together, they improve the hiring experience.
After 6 months, management reviews the results. Time to fill drops to 16 days. First day attendance improves. Retention increases. Supervisors spend less time filling schedule gaps. Production schedules stabilize because staffing becomes more predictable. That's meaningful progress.
Notice something important. No single initiative deserves all the credit. Recruiting improvements usually come from several coordinated efforts working together. Organizations sometimes search for one perfect solution. Most successful staffing programs are built from consistent improvements across the entire hiring process.
Let's talk about recruiting return on investment. Many people immediately think about advertising costs. Those matter. The larger financial picture extends much further. Every vacant position has an operational cost. Unfilled shifts increase overtime. Supervisors spend more time rearranging schedules. Training plans become disrupted. Production efficiency declines. Experienced employees experience fatigue. Quality concerns become more likely.
There's also turnover cost. When someone leaves after 2 weeks, the organization starts over. Recruiting, interviewing, background screening, orientation, training, supervisor coaching, administrative processing. Those activities require time from multiple departments. Reducing early turnover protects those investments.
That's why retention is often one of the strongest recruiting metrics available. Hiring more people isn't always the objective. Keeping more of the right people often produces better operational results.
Manufacturing illustrates that point well. Suppose 2 production facilities each hire 100 employees during the year. Facility A retains 85. Facility B retains 55. Both organizations completed the same number of hires. The operational experience is completely different. Facility A spends more time producing. Facility B spends much more time replacing employees.
The same pattern appears in food production. Stable teams become familiar with production schedules, safety procedures, equipment operation, quality expectations. Communication between coworkers improves naturally over time. Every additional month of retention strengthens institutional knowledge.
Let's shift toward implementation. Sometimes employers hear discussions like this and assume community recruiting requires a major organizational project. It doesn't have to. We usually recommend starting with a pilot. Keep it manageable. Measure results. Expand gradually.
Here's one practical framework. Choose one facility, one community, and one recruiting objective. Perhaps the goal is improving first-day attendance, or reducing 30-day turnover, or increasing local applicant volume. Define success before launching the program.
Next, identify local partners, community colleges, adult education programs, workforce development agencies, community centers, libraries, veterans organizations, neighborhood associations, career transition programs. These organizations already serve people seeking employment opportunities. Many welcome partnerships with employers.
Then schedule recurring engagement, not just one event with recurring activity, monthly recruiting sessions, quarterly career presentations, facility tours, community hiring days, supervisor meet and greets. Consistency creates recognition. Recognition builds trust.
Communication also deserves planning. Make sure every partner understands the positions available, required qualifications, shift schedules, pay ranges, career growth opportunities, hiring timelines, transportation options. The more accurate information available up front, the better prepared candidates become.
Let's not overlook current employees. They often become one of the strongest recruiting resources available. People enjoy working with individuals they know and trust. Referral programs remain effective because employees understand both the job and the people they're recommending.
Community recruiting strengthens referral programs naturally. Employees living nearby often know others searching for work. Friends, neighbors, former coworkers, family members. When those referrals already understand the work environment, expectations become more realistic from the beginning.
There's another benefit. Employees who live within the same community frequently build supportive relationships outside of work. Carpooling develops naturally. People remind each other about schedules. New employees feel connected more quickly because familiar faces already exist within the organization.
Let's spend a moment speaking directly to job seekers. Community recruiting creates opportunities that sometimes aren't obvious through online job searches. Career fairs, neighborhood hiring events, community college partnerships, workforce development programs, pop-up recruiting locations. Those events allow candidates to meet hiring teams in person, ask questions, learn about multiple employers, receive guidance before submitting applications.
If you're looking for work in warehousing, manufacturing, food production, retail distribution, construction, logistics, or skilled trades, don't limit your search to job boards alone. Visit local workforce centers, attend community hiring events, connect with recruiters, introduce yourself. Those conversations often lead to opportunities that aren't widely advertised yet.
Another recommendation for job seekers is keeping your information current. Bring an updated resume if you have one. Know your work history. Have references available. Understand which shifts you're willing to work. Think about transportation before accepting an offer. Being prepared helps hiring conversations move much more efficiently.
As employers continue adapting to workforce changes, local recruiting will likely become an increasingly important part of workforce planning. Communities continue growing, transportation patterns change, training opportunities expand, technology evolves. The organizations that stay connected to their communities will often be in a stronger position to respond to those changes.
And community recruiting isn't limited to periods of labor shortages. Even during stronger labor markets, maintaining relationships with schools, workforce organizations, and neighborhood partners creates long-term stability. Strong workforce pipelines aren't built during emergencies. They're built through consistent engagement over time.
Before we wrap up, let's summarize a few practical takeaways. Know where your workforce comes from. Measure retention, not only applications. Reduce unnecessary hiring delays. Build relationships within your community before urgent hiring begins. Partner with organizations already serving local job seekers. Make hiring more accessible. Evaluate transportation barriers. Measure results. Improve continuously.
Those principles apply across warehousing, retail distribution, food production, manufacturing, construction, logistics, and skilled trades. Every workforce is different, but every organization benefits from stronger local relationships and more dependable workforce pipelines.
Shelby, this has been a great discussion because it reinforces something we see every day. Successful recruiting isn't only about reaching more people, it's about reaching the right people, supporting them through the hiring process, and creating opportunities where both employers and employees succeed together.
I couldn't agree more, Sam. When employers become active participants in their local communities, recruiting becomes less transactional and more relationship-driven. That leads to stronger attendance, improved retention, better communication, and more resilient workforces over the long term.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Workers.com Staffing Pulse, Insights from the Frontline. If you're an employer looking to strengthen your workforce through community recruiting, localized hiring strategies, or workforce planning support, visit our website to learn how Workers.com helps employers connect with dependable talent across manufacturing, warehousing, logistics, retail distribution, food production, construction support, skilled trades, engineering, and office professional roles.
If you're searching for your next opportunity, whether you're beginning your career, looking for a new challenge, or ready to return to the workforce, visit jobs.workers.com to explore current openings with employers across the country. You'll also find career resources, hiring guidance, and opportunities across a wide range of industries.
You can also visit workers.com/community for workforce insights, recruiting resources, hiring articles, and all the latest podcast episodes.
If you enjoyed today's discussion, follow the podcast on your favorite podcast platform, subscribe on YouTube, and share this episode with colleagues, supervisors, business owners, operations leaders, and anyone working to build stronger local workforce pipelines.
Thanks for listening. We look forward to having you with us again for another conversation focused on practical staffing strategies, workforce trends, and solutions that help employers hire smarter and help job seekers build rewarding careers.